This is Ignatius, who is the main character of this movie. Ignatius's friend, Marin, is murdered, and he is accused of the crime. Despite his protests of innocence, no one believes him. However, as time passes, Ignatius gains some extraordinary powers. With these powers, he sets out to prove that he is not the murderer. One scene shows Ignatius standing at the window of his house, surrounded by press reporters and publicists. They call him outside and continue to accuse him of Marin's murder. Reporters ask him why he killed her, which deeply saddens and upsets him because he was in love with Marin. Feeling ignored and hurt, he leaves in his car, seeking solace with his parents. Ignatius's parents try to encourage him, assuring him that everything will be all right. However, his father still harbors doubts about Ignatius's innocence. Troubled by his father's lack of belief, Ignatius leaves. Later, Ignatius sits outside with his brother, and their childhood friend named Lee arrives with the news that the laboratory where the evidence of Marin's death was stored has burned down. This devastates Ignatius because the medical and post-mortem reports that could reveal the truth about Marin's killer are now lost. At night, Marin's father and relatives gather to light candles in her memory. During the gathering, Marin's father accuses Ignatius of murdering his daughter and vows that he will have to pay for it. Ignatius, who was observing from a treehouse, is shocked and saddened by this accusation. He goes there after everyone leaves and questions the creator, wondering why Marin's father would say such things. Ignatius's childhood friend tries to dissuade him from dwelling on it, but Ignatius questions how the creator could take Marin's life when she used to attend church wearing a crucifix every Sunday. The next morning, Ignatius wakes up to find something resembling horns on his head. Disturbed by their presence, he shows them to his friend, who doesn't seem worried. She then begins to share her own story, expressing how disliked she feels and how Ignatius ended up with her while being drugged. Subsequently, Ignatius visits a doctor to have the horns removed. The doctor is unfazed when Ignatius shows her the horns, and she hands him a form to fill out. While he is filling out the form, a lady and her daughter are also waiting. The little girl starts shouting, and the lady mentions that she wants to kick her daughter because Ignatius seems disturbed by her. Ignatius realizes that the lady's words are influenced by the impact of his horns and tries to stop her from hitting the glass. Ignatius submits the form to the receptionist, who politely asks the lady and her daughter to leave to help ease Ignatius's distress. The lady becomes furious and hits the glass forcefully, but Ignatius catches her hand to stop her. In that moment, he senses that she is involved with someone else. The lady immediately leaves, pulling her hand away. The little girl then expresses her dislike for her mother, revealing that her mother is not virtuous and spends most of her time outside. Ignatius visits a doctor to have his horns removed, but the doctor doesn't take them seriously. Ignatius asks the doctor to remove the horns, but before the procedure, he is rendered unconscious. In his unconscious state, he recalls meeting Marin for the first time at the church and how their friendship grew. When Ignatius regains consciousness, he realizes that his horns have not been removed yet, and the doctor is occupied elsewhere. He realizes that everything happening to him is because of these horns. Later, Ignatius confides in his friend Lee about his horns. Lee is unable to see the horns, and Ignatius wonders if only virtuous people can see them. When Ignatius shares his problem with his mother, she reacts strangely, expressing that she doesn't want to know his problem, and that it would have been better if he hadn't existed. Ignatius feels saddened by her response. Ignatius turns to his father for support, but his father accuses him of killing Marin, stating that she was a nice girl and Ignatius' friend. Ignatius vehemently denies the accusation and questions his father's lack of trust. His father confesses that he set the lab on fire to protect Ignatius by destroying the evidence. Ignatius becomes angry, believing that he could have proven his innocence if his father hadn't destroyed the evidence. Ignatius shares everything with his friend Lee over a call and realizes that press reporters are following him. Seeking refuge, Ignatius goes to a club where Marin used to work. He challenges the press reporters, saying that only the best one will interview him, causing a quarrel among them. Ignatius takes advantage of the chaos and enters the club. The club owner reveals his true intentions, confessing that he wants to destroy the club for insurance money, influenced by Ignatius's horns. Inside the club, Ignatius asks if anyone knows about the murder of Marin. A person reveals that their cousin in the police department knows a new witness, a waitress who saw Ignatius dragging Marin. Ignatius feels relieved because he now knows who made false accusations against him. Outside the club, in his car, Ignatius finds a ring he was planning to gift to Marin. The scene changes, and it is revealed that Ignatius intended to propose to Marin on the night she died. He had asked his friend Lee and brother to accompany him, unaware of Marin's decision. Lee and his brother visited Marin, and a waitress served them a drink. However, before Ignatius could propose, Marin expressed her desire to part ways, stating that she didn't believe their connection would last. Ignatius, depressed and angered, left the scene. The following morning, police officers inform Ignatius that Marin has been murdered and he is the prime suspect. Ignatius confronts the waitress, who admits to lying for media attention. Ignatius dismisses her statement, knowing that there is other evidence that proves he didn't drag Marin. As Ignatius meets his brother reveals the truth. He had taken Marin to her house on the night of her murder. Ignatius becomes enraged and starts attacking his brother for not disclosing this information during the police interrogation. Ignatius imagines the moment when his brother drove Marin, but he was drugged, and Marin left the car and went into the forest. Ignatius's brother fell asleep and woke up with blood-stained clothes and a blood-spotted stone beside him. He panicked and caught sight of Marin's dead body before going to a lake to dispose of the clothes and stone. Blaming his brother, Ignatius accuses him of killing Marin. The police arrive at the scene and arrest Ignatius. The next day, Ignatius is released by his friend Lee. Ignatius notices that Lee is wearing the same crucifix that Marin used to wear. He asks Lee how he got it, and Lee tells him that Marin gave it to him. Ignatius is shocked and asks why she would give it to him when they were in a relationship. Lee reveals that he is the person she left Ignatius for. Ignatius feels betrayed and drives angrily to Marin's father's house. Ignatius confronts Marin's father and asks if Marin ever mentioned another guy. Her father denies it, saying that she only talked about Ignatius and was in love with him. Ignatius becomes even more upset and is told to leave before he gets shot. In a secluded place, Ignatius tries to remove his horns, but fails because they are firmly attached to his head. He then sees snakes approaching him, which he realizes is due to his horns. For the first time, Ignatius feels that the horns give him strength instead of being a weakness. He becomes more powerful and can understand people's unspoken words. Ignatius seeks out the waitress who accused him, and the snakes attack her. Ignatius then escapes from the police officers who are chasing him, using his newfound powers. He meets his brother, who is heavily under the influence of drugs. Ignatius uses his powers to make his brother consume even more drugs, causing his health to rapidly deteriorate. Ignatius, driven by the sight of Marin's lifeless body, contemplates seeking revenge by reporting the incident to the police, but decides against it, saving his brother. The next day, Lee comes to Ignatius and claims that he is not to blame. He reveals that it was Marin's decision to leave Ignatius. Ignatius attacks Lee and takes the crucifix from his neck. As he removes the crucifix, Ignatius begins to see things differently. He understands that Lee was protected by the crucifix given by Marin, but not anymore. Ignatius strangles Lee and imagines Marin telling Lee that she will distance herself from Ignatius. They part ways that night, with Lee witnessing everything from his car. Lee follows Ignatius's brother as he takes Marin somewhere. When Ignatius's brother falls asleep due to drugs, Lee goes into the forest where Marin is waiting. Lee approaches her, and they argue about her decision to leave Ignatius. Marin expresses her love for Ignatius, but admits she was unstable. In the altercation, Marin bites Lee's hand, and he strikes her head with a stone, killing her. Ignatius is shocked to learn that Lee is the murderer. Lee confesses that he placed the stone in Ignatius' brother's hand to make him appear guilty. He attacks Ignatius and sets his car on fire, but Ignatius jumps into the water with the car, demonstrating his cleverness. News spreads that Ignatius died in the water with his car, and his body is not found. Meanwhile, Ignatius' brother is hospitalized, and his condition remains critical. In the next scene, Ignatius emerges from the water, miraculously alive. He goes to Marin's father and reveals the true murderer. Ignatius gives Marin's crucifix to her father, saying he needs it more. As Ignatius wears the crucifix, his appearance returns to normal and his horns disappear. He visits the treehouse where he used to spend time with Marin and finds a letter she left, explaining that she had cancer and wouldn't be able to live a long life with him. She didn't want to burden him and still had affectionate feelings for him. Reading the letter, Ignatius understands why she wanted to distance herself from him. Ignatius immediately informs his brother about Lee being Marin's murderer. His brother agrees to help him seek justice. Lee has no memory of their past altercation due to memory loss. Ignatius takes advantage of this and brings Lee to the tree where Marin was killed. Ignatius confronts Lee, accusing him of the murder. Lee denies it, but Ignatius insists on the truth. The police and Ignatius's brother arrive, leading to a heated dispute. In the chaos, Ignatius injures his foot, and a police officer is killed. Due to his injury, Ignatius temporarily removes the crucifix, transforming into a devil-like figure. Lee tries to shoot Ignatius, but Ignatius remains unharmed. Ignatius retaliates by stabbing Lee with his horns, injuring him. Suddenly, a snake enters Lee's wound, controlled by another snake. The snake travels through Lee's body, ultimately causing his demise. It is revealed that Lee has been punished for his actions. In the end, Ignatius is unable to wear the crucifix again. He turns into stone in front of his brother and comes face to face with Marin. They are reunited and filled with happiness. The movie concludes with this scene. Thanks for watching this recap. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, comment below, and don't forget to tell me what movie you want me to recap next.